The 2023-24 ski season was far from ideal in the Midwest, but how did it stack up against the rest of the country, and what is the state of our industry after this roller coaster of a season? Well, let's talk about it. What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Matthew Zbransky with MidwestSkiers.com, and I hope everybody is having a fantastic off-season. As we begin to edge closer and closer to the season, the ski industry is wrapping up its off-season conferences. Although I couldn't make it to all of them this season, I attended as many sessions as I possibly could and made sure to get all the information from key presenters on those that I couldn't make. I also chatted with a lot of individuals from all over the country about what they thought about this past season and what the future holds for this industry. That said, since not everybody can attend these events, I thought I would share with you the 4 main things that I took away from this year's conferences, specifically looking at the data submitted from last season. But before we dive into that, if you enjoy insider ski content such as this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel as we hunt down our goal of hitting 10,000 subs by the end of the year. I'd love to have you as part of our community. The first and most obvious takeaway from this past season was that it was a roller coaster for the entire industry. This past year started slowly with warm and wet weather leading into the Christmas and New Year's holidays, which equated to low skier and rider numbers in this year's first half. The second half of the season was much better for most of the country, with more snow and colder temperatures coming back into the picture as we went into late February and into March. This helped bring numbers back up, leading the industry to rack up 60.5 million visits, which is the 5th best on record dating back to 1978-79. Not bad considering how slow of a start it was. However, this number doesn't paint the full picture, especially here in the Midwest. When it comes to skier and rider visits, the majority of the country saw around a 4 to 10% decrease from last year. However, the Midwest was hit the hardest, with nearly a 27% drop in visitation compared to last season. This number becomes clearer when you look at the region's average operational days. In the Midwest, we dropped to an average of just 74 operational days last season compared to the 90 that we saw in 2022-23. And that's well below the decade average of about 85 operational days. This is a nearly 18% drop in operational days compared to the previous season and about a 13% decrease compared to the 10-year average, making those visitation numbers make a little more sense here. And although visitation as a whole across the country did bounce back toward the end of the season, chatting with many of the operators, those numbers were hard-earned. Although I don't have exact data on this, anecdotally, a lot of operators voiced that operational costs were much higher this year due to the increased costs surrounding snowmaking, of course. This is especially true in the Midwest, where a lot of ski areas made snow basically through the entire season rather than wrapping things up around the end of January. And for those of us that lived and experienced this past season, none of this data is surprising at all. It was one of the warmest winters on record, and snow totals were some of the lowest that we have seen in the past decade. So, the Midwest had a rough season, not really a shocker there. But there was something that did take me a bit by surprise. The Midwest is the hippest and the coolest region in the ski industry. Well, coolest as in like fashionable, cool, hip, not cool last season because of snow made. Anyways, we do have some of the biggest opportunities to grow our sport. Looking at the complete data from 2022-23, the Midwest is the youngest region in the country and has been for many, many years. This is especially important because the industry has shown a consistent aging trend. The median age went from 27 back in 2006 and 7 to 35 in 2022-23. Now, in comparison, the Midwest current median age is just 25. The Midwest and the Southeast are by far the youngest regions and play a huge part in attracting younger skiers and snowboarders into this sport. This is only solidified by this past year's lesson ratios. Even with the challenging weather, the Midwest had roughly 8% of its visits as lessons, and that's just behind the Southeast, which saw 9% of its visits as lessons. These regions have continued to be leaders over the past decade when it comes to the youngest demographic of skiers and riders, which is a huge opportunity for us in the Midwest. And this is especially true as lesson ratios across the country are at a historic low. With the skier and rider population continuing to age, we as an industry need to focus efforts on attracting younger and newer participants to our sport. Now, how we grow that piece of the pie is probably best left for another video, but there is no doubt that the Midwest plays a huge part in growing and stabilizing the snow sports industry. Another challenge that has continued to be a topic of discussion for our industry is climate change. This past season was an example of how challenging weather can directly affect the industry. Still, it also showcased how resistant and stable the industry truly is, even during the most challenging of years. And to that end, the industry has continued to focus on sourcing renewable energy, and vendors are constantly reinvesting in research and development to make their products, such as snowmaking machines and groomers, much more efficient while increasing their quality. And speaking of reinvesting, one thing is certain: this industry continues to reinvest in all of its ski areas. Over the past few seasons, we have seen massive increases in reinvestment capital across the entire industry. In 2022-23, the industry spent over $818 million in capital expenditures, the most on record. 2023-24 followed closely with $754 million, and this upcoming season, the industry is already projected over $457 million in capital expenditures, and over $52 million of that total will be spent in the Midwest, the most on record for the region. These past few years indicate that this industry is not afraid to spend money to reinvest in their ski areas, which is a great indicator for what the future holds for our sport. Improved ropeways, infrastructure, and snowmaking topped the list of reinvestments and improvements, resulting in better experiences for all of us, the skiers and snowboarders. So what does this all mean? Is the industry in trouble? What does the future hold, and what can we do to help? Well, there's a bit of good and bad news here. Of course, it's obvious that this industry has and will continue to experience challenges. Most notably, climate change and an aging user population. Those are the two most pressing concerns. But the good news is that the industry is and has been adapting quickly and efficiently. Snowmaking and grooming technology advancements play a major part in stabilizing seasons when weather becomes a major challenge. And this season, and especially in the Midwest, has been considered one of the worst for operators yet. We were still able to pull out a very respectable season, all things considered. Looking at the historical data, visitation numbers have remained stable over the years despite changes and challenges concerning weather. This stability, coupled with the reinvestment that we have seen over the past few seasons, gives me a ton of stoke about what the future holds for our industry. However, I continue to think about how we can grow this sport. Undoubtedly, we need to bring in a younger crowd, and the Midwest has and hopefully will continue to play a major role in that. As skiers and snowboarders, we also play a role in this by encouraging, teaching, and promoting this sport to as many people as possible. Active skiers and snowboarders comprise only about 3% of the US population, and although this number has been looking promising the past couple of seasons, imagine if we could move that needle even just 1%, especially if that 1% was a younger demographic. Speaking of, have you introduced anybody to the sport recently? How did it go? Let me know in the comments section below. But there you have it, a brief look at the industry's current state and some takeaways from this year's data, well, I guess like last season's data. But until next time, I hope everybody has a great week, pray for that snow, and I will see you out there.